Welcome to our restaurant, Eden. Today we're preparing for you a really simple Italian dish of tagliatelle. I've had the opportunity in my career to learn from some really talented individuals. One of those, one of my mentors, Tony Mantuano, I think one of the most important things that he taught is that Italian food and good Italian food is oftentimes about the ingredients that you don't add. So meaning 3, 4, 5 very simple ingredients of high quality going into a dish can come out tasting super clean, unmuddled, which is really important in Italian cuisine. All of you should have received some packages. Inside of those we have several items. We have garlic, we have shallot. I'm going to go through and show you how to clean up really easily each one of those. So both garlic and shallots, first thing that we should know about these is that they should never be refrigerated. Upon refrigeration, both shallots and garlic become extremely pungent in flavor and can oftentimes overtake whatever it is you're trying to prepare with them. So in this case, and really all of these things are also up to personal preference as far as the amounts of items that you're adding, more so with the garlic that we're using in this dish, as well as the red pepper flakes. So if you have an aversion or just like those in small amounts, it's fine to use a little bit less than is on your recipe. So I just take the side of my knife and kind of smash the garlic cloves a little bit just to loosen up that outside skin so that they're easy to peel. Those all peeled up. And likewise with the shallot, we're just going to remove that external skin and we're just going to cut simply into rings. Garlic we're going to chop here. Also important to use, whole garlic and whole shallots that still have the skins on them. That will, oftentimes you'll see a garlic product that's already cut or already cleaned and in the refrigerator section. Again, it's because of the pungency that we don't want to use those items. So I'll just kind of clean off the woody ends of our garlic as well and discard. And we'll give it a quick chop. I'm just running my knife through. Doesn't have to be perfect. We're going to come back through it several times just to get it down to a nice small size. That looks pretty good. And we'll put into our mise en place bowl here. Likewise with the shallot, I'm going to nip off either end of the shallot itself, cut the whole item in half. It's important with vegetables. Most vegetables come in a form that's not square. So to give whatever it is a squared off side, makes the cutting process safer and easier. So I put the shallot down on its flat side. And then I'm going to show you how to dice really easily, kind of like an Italian grandmother would. Not quite as precise as technique we use in most of the culinary world, but this works really well as well. So as you see, I've removed the root, I removed the tip. I'm going to set it on its side, and I'm cutting about 1/4 of an inch slices, but as you see, I'm not cutting all the way through, so it's still attached by the end piece there. And then I'm going to come back and just cut again 1/4 of an inch or so in that direction. The end that was still intact, we'll just run a knife through for a nice rough cut. And likewise, we do it with our other half of the shallot. Hey. Making me cry a bit. What actually makes you tear up from onions and or shallots, anything in that family, inside the cell of the onion, there are some sulfur compounds. Attached to that cell as well as a little vacuole, and that vacuole is an enzyme. When those two items meet, when you cut into them, they mix and they produce a gas that is what makes you cry like this. All right, the next bag we're gonna grab is our Mighty Vine tomatoes. The tomatoes themselves are really important that they're of high quality. This is another ingredient that you never want to refrigerate. Tomatoes, when you refrigerate them, become really mealy in texture and become kind of watery. So we're just going to cut these guys in half and then add to our second little mise en place bowl here. These tomatoes are grown locally here in Chicago or just outside in the western suburbs. These really large Dutch-style greenhouses. I think they're up to 14 acres of indoor greenhouse that they're growing these in now really successfully. You get a really high-quality tomato year-round. And they don't really have to, because they are indoor, they typically, for tomatoes and things, they have to rely on honeybees or butterflies in order to do the pollination. In this particular type of greenhouse, they actually bring in boxes of bumblebees, which are non-colonial insects. So they just simply go out and do their pollination without extracting nectar to produce honey. And then they just box them back up. They fly back to their boxes, and then they take them off. So only when they need fertilization done are those bees ever introduced inside the greenhouse. And we're just cutting these in half just to expose the inside flesh of the tomato as well. It'll make it a little bit quicker for the cooking process to actually allow the internal meat of the tomato to become our quick pan sauce. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and turn on the heat on my saute pan. This pan here is designed specifically for pasta making, sauteing pasta. It has a nice rounded edge at the bottom and nice high sides. And the main difference between how pasta is prepared in a good restaurant and how you do at home is the emulsification process. It's important that our sauce at the end coats the pasta very nicely and evenly without being broken. When I say broken, it's that the fats have separated from the liquids from the solids. So you have kind of a spotty, not consistent sauce at the end. Okay, also important here that we have a second pot on with boiling water. My pot has already been on here for about 10 minutes. I'm going to salt the water. That's going to make sure that our pasta at the end has the correct salinity. So half of the amount of salt that we gave you in the portion cup should be added to the pasta water. Our olive oil, which is this yellow colored, you have two liquids here. One is the oil, which is you can tell is a little more viscous and a little bit more golden in color. The second one that we have is a little deeper amber in color, and that's our White Shoyu. That's going to be used to finish our sauce. So just enough olive oil to coat the bottom of the pan. You do not need to use everything that was given. And like I mentioned earlier, kind of one of the two things that we can put in lesser amounts if you have an aversion to really spicy food or really garlicky food. You don't have to add all of these red pepper flakes, or we can. You'll watch as they start to sizzle as soon as they hit the pan. And I just kind of swirl around, and that's just releasing some of the oils out of that pepper. The next thing I'm adding to the pan is our garlic and shallots together. And they almost immediately start to perfume. We don't want them to take on any color, so we keep them moving in the pan. I'm also going to add just a pinch of salt at this point. This is gonna help any water that's in those onions and garlic exude out so that we get a more even cook. So those start to saute down. Looking good. At this point too, I'm gonna go ahead and drop our pasta into the pot. So I have this handy little basket that's inside of my pasta pot. If you have something like that, great. If not, it's fine just to go directly into the boiling water. This is just containing it and making it a little bit easier for me to control here. Secondarily, you would want a colander on the side if you were to have to dump off your pasta water. It is, however, always a good idea to have pasta water left over in the end. That's more so to help with our emulsification when we go to make our sauce. Mighty Vine tomatoes go into the sauce pot as well. And those are going to just start to break down for us nice and readily. I'm going to add a little bit more of the salt at this point as well, another kind of hefty pinch here. That's going to make sure that our tomatoes are seasoned properly, and likewise as before, it's going to start pulling out a lot of that water and help us make a more uniform sauce. We'll just kind of let those do their thing there. It's important here as well that upon putting our pasta into the pot, that about a minute later we come through and stir it up. I like to use a pair of tongs just because I have a little bit more control with it. And we're looking in the end for this pasta to be cooked al dente, meaning to the tooth in Italian. That means that it still has a considerable amount of bite to those front teeth as you come down on it. Looking good. I've learned over the years, we have a couple of secret ingredients that we use in most Italian cuisine. I'm going to show you one of them here today, and that's White Shoyu. This is a really high-end refined soy sauce. Lighter in color, mainly because it's made from a higher percentage of wheat that's been fermented as opposed to soy. It also is filtered several times, taking out some of that color. Has a much milder flavor, but what it does is it adds umami to what we're cooking. So it's going to make these tomatoes taste like a better tomato. If you were using it in a meat preparation, it makes meats taste more meaty. Umami is a measure of glutamate. Glutamate is the compound that acts as a flavor enhancer in food. Think of it as natural MSG. There's a reason why things like Doritos taste really good. And it's because they have really high levels of glutamate in them. So I can tell by looking at this pasta that it's just about done here, but I always like to test it out. So we're going to test that al dente by physically putting a noodle in our mouth and chewing it. And we're about there. We're, I'd say, a minute out. We can also finish that cooking of the pasta right in the sauce as well, which quite honestly helps with that emulsification process that I keep talking about as well. If you were to see into this pot, you can kind of see our sauce has actually already come together into an emulsification. You can see that everything is evenly distributed in there. It's going to coat the pasta nice and evenly at the end. And so here we go with our pasta, going from boiling water into our pasta pan. And then I use a pair of tongs to stir and to help emulsify that sauce. So now what we've added here is a little bit of starch to the equation. So the starch from the pasta itself adds to the sauce and just makes it more stable and helps with that coating process. The tagliatelle noodles themselves also have if you were to look at a microscopic level, they have lots of tiny little holes in them. Each one of those holes we want to fill with pasta sauce. That you'll always get really good hole structure from a high quality noodle. So I've added, if you watch me there, I added a little bit of pasta water back to it as well. Again, that's adding just water to our emulsification. And you see how that physical action is really important in breaking some of that starch off the pasta, bringing it all together so it's nice and uniform. And I think we're just about there. So at this point, I'm going to cut my heat off. Okay, so our pasta is just kind of hanging out in the pan there. I'm going to add about half of this amount of white shoyu and a good squeeze of lemon. So with the lemon, I'll show you a quick way to remove all of the seeds from your lemon as well. So I've cut in half lengthwise from tip to tip. Again, I'm making that same cut. And then I'm coming back on a 45-degree angle. And what I'm left with is a nice clean piece of lemon. Easy for squeezing into anything that you're cooking without getting the adverse effect of having seeds. Again, I'm just going to use some physical action to bring that all together. We're also going to add basil at this point. And I like most herbs in kind of their whole type form. So here in this case, we're just going to pick the basil right off of the stem and go directly into our pasta dish. Good thing about Italian cooking as well is most of it is pretty rustic in nature. So we'll add some here. This basil will kind of, think of it like tea or something, and that we're steeping it in the hot liquid. It's gonna release a lot of those really aromatic flavors. At the same time, it'll cook slightly. So as we go to plate this dish, I'll likely top it with a little bit more basil. You can't go wrong. One of my favorite herbs. Goes with just about everything, but certainly goes with all things Italian. Just a quick tip on actually plating up our pasta without making a mess. So I have my tongs and I have my pan. I'm gonna bring the lip of my pan right to the center of my bowl, okay? And then with my tongs, I just let the pasta kind of fall off, but my pan itself is not moving. And we have a beautiful emulsified tomato, lemon, basil sauce. And we'll go ahead and top with a little bit more basil, just for garnish, and because it's delicious. And that's it. Enjoy.